Hey everybody, what's going on? It's James here with Crypto Common Sense, and I have your Bitcoin / cryptocurrency update for Monday, June the 15th. Before I jump into the content for this video, please do me a huge favor. Hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, make sure you click that bell icon to get notifications when I release new updates, and don't forget to check the description for a link where you can join the Patron for access to even more frequent updates. So first things first, let's take a look at the Dow, right? We're going to look at the Dow first. I'm not going to spend a lot of time in the stock market, but I do want to point something out because these markets, it's not that you have a crystal ball. It's not that anybody has a crystal ball. It's not that anybody knows for sure what's going to happen, but you really do have clues to what's coming, guys and girls. On my video back on June 9th, when I said the Dow looked like it was going to pull back, right? And if you guys watched that video, you probably remember me saying that at the very least, this was due to pull back to this level here. In fact, this was the video right here on June 9th. You can see that I had actually drawn a line there with an arrow pointing right to it. And this was the chart this morning when price tagged that level, okay? Didn't have a crystal ball, didn't have magic, didn't have any of that. It's just what happens in markets. Even if this is a new uptrend, even if this is a new bull market, which again, I personally don't believe it is, right? I personally am still skeptical of this entire move. There's so much euphoria and so much complacency that I think what comes next is going to be pretty brutal. But I don't have any, exact target for this right now. I don't know when it's going to happen. I don't know if it's going to happen. But when certain moves happen, it's easier to call the smaller time frames. So when this ranged between this low of 23,000 and this high up here around 24.5 or 24.7, right up in this ballpark, once it broke free of that, it was just basic technical analysis that it would come down and retest its old support, which is what it did. This was the old level support, right? Resistance flip support, boom, tested it, and now it's bounced off of it. Now, the trouble is in these markets where it becomes tricky is trying to determine what comes next. This is much more difficult. This, fairly easy, because it didn't matter whether this was a bull trend or whether this was a bear trend. Either way, it was likely to come back down to this level, okay? So now we're kind of back here to no man's land where we've got to sit on our hands a little bit because it's very difficult to determine what comes next. Is this a dead cat bounce where it's going to bounce and then have further downside, or was this simply a retest of old support and it's going to come in over here and put in a higher high? I don't know. I have no idea which is going to happen. And when those situations arise, normally what I do is I just wait, just patiently wait. And if I do want to trade, what I'll do is I'll zoom in to like a 1 hour chart or a 4 hour chart, and I'll try to trade those intraday time frames or even a 15-minute chart, right? But this right here, very standard stuff and stuff that you really want to get used to. If you're not, if this happened and you're like, what the hell is going on, right? This is the stuff you want to really get in the hang of spotting and get in the hang of expecting, because maybe you shorted this and caught a 10% move, maybe not. Maybe you just stayed out of a long position because you knew, hey, it was probably going to come back down to this level, right? And then if you were bullish, instead of getting long up here, you could have got long right there, right? Much better entry point. So that is the Dow. Let's take a look at the RSI on the Dow. So I had a couple of easy long positions, one back here and one right here. And now let's take all of that off there because none of it matters. It's all old and it's all played out. So we'll take that off, and let's draw a new trend line. And again, we're really talking about the Dow because we want to know how it's going to affect cryptocurrency, not because this channel is about stocks, okay? And if we look, what's happening right now in the Dow, okay? By the way, this is like the futures, so that's the reason it's still running even though the actual stock market is closed right now. It's coming right back up to this red line. So what I want to do is I want to watch this and see whether or not it can break and close above this red line. If so, it could be that more upside is coming. And of course, if it fails or if it closes underneath it, could be that this is simply a dead cat bounce off of this strong move down, and that we'll get something that looks more like this, okay? And what's suspicious about, and again, we're talking about this because Bitcoin has shown heavy correlation, blah, 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 right? So if the stock market moves down, good chance Bitcoin moves down with it. But what's really suspicious about this is look what's sitting right above us. Right about the time we're running into this RSI resistance, we're also going to be running right into the 200-day moving average, and this could absolutely be a bearish retest. And if it's a bearish retest, then we got to expect more downside. If we can break above the 200-day moving average and close above it, that would mean we would also break above this red line of resistance in RSI. And I would think that, hey, you know what? Probably has some more steam left, right? For whatever reason, Fed reasons, whether it's just the market itself, whether it's, you know, manipulation, who knows? But if it can close above those levels, I would feel like it's bullish in nature. Okay, so let's jump over. I'm not gonna look at any other stocks. Just want to look at a simple stock. Keep that fairly short. Let's talk about Bitcoin. All right. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna jump into a daily chart. And guys, I can just gotta tell you, I have been so out of it here lately. I haven't been doing a lot of trading. It just seems like when it rains, it pours. And usually that saying is bad. Usually it means some bad things are happening. Nothing bad is happening. It's just been crazy busy around my house. With the way the market is right now with houses, I've been working on getting my house fixed up. Not that it was, you know, in ruins or anything, but we've been living here about 12 years, and of course, normal wear and tear. So I just haven't been at my desk very much. I've probably been at my desk less in the last 3 weeks than I have been any other month in the last couple of years. But even just kind of spot checking what's going on, this stuff is moving, you know, fairly predictably. Okay, fairly predictably. So let me give you an example here. This is actually my 15-minute chart. So what I want to do is pull up. Actually, I'm going to use this because it's clean. There's no lines on it. So we can just do this from scratch, okay? So if I put this on a daily chart, right, we've had our uptrend going back to March 13th, and we had this line that we had talked about in the past video, right? And I said we could draw it several different ways, but no matter how we drew it, it was always going to be that it had been busted, right? If we looked at it on a line chart, it was underneath it. And that isn't exactly, you know, what was going on, right? We've lost our support. And to me, it just looks like a pause before more downside. Now, could be wrong because there was also this range that this has been playing inside of, right? Looks something like this. I would call that the range with a little, you know, a little bit of an outlier right there. So what I thought was this would come down probably to around 85, 8,600, and then we'd find out, you know, what's going on. Now, so far I didn't do that. Yesterday morning, or I guess it was technically this morning for me, less than 24 hours ago, threw this really long tail down and really just retested this old level of support right there. See how perfect that was? And then bounced off of it. So, you know, going to be interesting as we watch that. But the move down, the big move down itself, not at all out of the ordinary. If we draw a very simple line of resistance in RSI, it is the same story that plays out again and again and again. We've got first touch, we've got a second touch, which establishes our trend line, and there's the third touch, which is a very cliche textbook rejection. Down price goes, right? And if we look at it, it moved down from the open to the bottom 8.5%, and from the open to this, tail today, a little over 10%. Really, really easy stuff to trade. Okay. If we draw a longer term trend line, right, going back to the low back in March on the RSI, we had this one with the bearish retest there. That's no longer valid. We had this one, looked like a bearish retest here. That's no longer valid. We draw it down. This hasn't been retested yet, so definitely do want to keep an eye on that, see if that gets retested. Also want to draw another one because this might actually be my line right here. And if we look at that line and we turn it green because it would be support, not resistance, it's underneath the price, then it could be possible that this right here is actually our first touch or second touch that establishes our trend line, And this could be a third touch here where maybe this is going to move up off of that. Now, do I believe that's what's happening? Not really, but the chart doesn't say that. Right now, the chart doesn't say, either way. It just has a couple of lines that I need to watch and wait for one of them to break. Well, once one of them breaks, or if I see something on a smaller time frame, then I can start leaning one way or the other, okay? And again, all of this is talking about the smaller movements. Macro picture, I'm still bearish, which is, I'm sure by now anybody who's, been watching for any amount of time knows that's my default status is bearish, right? I am not a Bitcoin bull. I don't hate Bitcoin. I'm not saying that Bitcoin is dead and should be counted out. I'm just saying right now, with everything going on in the world, I'm not a big believer in the short term, meaning the next 6 months to a year. I just think that rocky waters are still ahead, okay? So that is a daily chart, and like I said, it's a clean chart without all the mock-ups and all that kind of stuff on it. If we take a look at some of my other charts, which I have not looked at today, if we take a look at a 3-day chart, let's see what we find out. All right, so this thing is pretty messy. I'm looking at these old lines that I had drawn. This looked relevant back here, but really not saying a whole lot now. See if I can draw anything that would give us any clues. Well, there's a third touch. Old news now. Would have been nice right here, right? If I had played that long position, which I don't think I did. But if I had played that long position, nice 21% move off of that sucker, right? Maybe even played this short here off of this line. I believe I did play it short off of this one. Just didn't keep it open though. Not really seeing anything, right? Don't really see any good lines of support or resistance. Let's try another one here. If I draw it like this, nothing really. Right here would have been, what it looked like a long position. Probably would not have worked out very well, right? If you were just going off of RSI alone, maybe somebody could have got in and out for 2 or 3%. Probably would have lost money and got stopped out on that one. So this is kind of muddled right now, right? Looks like it wants to go back down inside our bear market box, but it's not there yet. So just kind of wait and see. This sort of looks like a descending triangle, okay? Sort of looks like it's putting in a flat bottom with some lower highs. So maybe this bounces up a little bit and then craps the bed. Maybe not, right? But that doesn't look bullish to me. That looks pretty weak. All right. And then again, this is a 3-day chart. This candle opened on June 14th, so it closes in a little less than 24 hours. All right. If we're looking at pure structure, obviously we had this uptrend. This was a higher low. This was a higher high. Still an uptrend, higher low. Here's your lower high. And this right here was a lower low than this. So this is technically switched from an uptrend to a downtrend on the 3-day chart, okay? For this to break out of this downtrend now, this needs to pump up and break this high back here, which is right around, just call it 9,900 bucks. All right, it needs to close above that. So that is a 3-day chart. If we take a look at a weekly chart, which again, I have not looked at, let's take a look here. So this is Bitstamp, don't care about that. It's ironic. I'll talk about this real quick. Sometimes I think people watch my channel and they're like, this guy is just, permanently set to bear mode. Guys, I'm really not. I do look at these charts sometimes and I try to find reasons to be bullish. This was one of those times I was doing it. I didn't talk about it in any videos, but I was looking for something that would make me bullish. For example, I had measured out from the top in 2013 to where the next bull run, basically, well, not the next bull run. Actually, what I was doing was I was measuring how far we were from the top in 2017, to where we were now, which was about 30 bars. So then I measured out 30 bars from this top in 2013, and it looked like it was right at the beginning of the bull run, right? From mid-2016 all the way through 2017. So I was looking at that going, hey, maybe this is bullish, but the other things are not kind of backing it up, right? But I do, believe it or not, sit in my quiet time by myself and look for reasons to be bullish, because it's much better for everybody. Well, not for everybody. I'm sure there's people that's not good for. But for me and for most people, it's better if Bitcoin goes up. Not only because I'm holding some Bitcoin, but because I trade a lot of Bitcoin. And the more people trading Bitcoin, the higher the price is, the more liquid it is. And liquidity is a massive part of trading when you start getting into some larger position sizes. You know, if you're trading $500, you don't really have a whole lot to worry about. But when you start trading, larger positions, the more liquid the coin, the more liquid the asset, the less slippage you have. Now, Bitcoin's pretty liquid, right? But I'm talking more about like certain altcoins, right? The more money in the space, the more liquid those altcoins are, the easier it is to get in and out. Versus right now, if you look at a lot of the altcoins, you have these big spreads between the bid and the ask. Sometimes it's 0.5%, right? Just between the bid and the ask, and that's a huge problem. So, much prefer a bull market, all right? Let's see. Let's look at Coinbase. Okay, so this is my weekly chart. I haven't updated this thing in a while, so let's see what we got going on. This was the old halving. Don't care about that anymore. This was obviously our bear market RSI. Let's look at what we got going. This is set to monthly. We want this weekly. Okay. So we had... looks like a bullish retest here. I remember talking about this a little bit when it happened. We had the bounce off of it. It was a really nice bounce. What it bounced, about 10, 15%? Oh, 20%. Okay, but that's played out. That doesn't matter anymore. It's not relevant. This looks almost like a rejection here. And we're kind of stuck in no man's land, just like we were on that 3-day chart, right? We're not hitting any lines of resistance. We're also not hitting any lines of support. We're just kind of in the middle right there. This looked like it was going to put in a double top, but it didn't break the neckline. It would have to break this line right here to be a double top, right? Where you get something that looks like, where's my brush? Get something that looks like this. So that hasn't happened yet. So let's take off that. And if I'm looking at structure, right? Obviously, we had this high back here that we failed to take out, but we had started to establish this high, low, higher high. Then we switched. This was actually a lower low, so that was bad. But then we punched in this slightly higher high, and this is a slightly, or actually a fairly higher low. So we're kind of like, ranging a little bit. We don't really have a clear uptrend or a clear downtrend on the weekly. If you're a bull, you need this thing to bust up above this level this week and close, which again, it's Monday, got a whole week ahead. But you need this week to close above this yellow line to keep, some sort of uptrend intact. If it can't close above that line, then I would start to think that this is probably topped out and that this is actually distribution before our next move down. And remember, if we're talking about a macro level, okay, not just a smaller time frame, but a macro level, we don't know, even if this thing does pull back, we don't know whether or not it's a correction, right? And this parabolic move up, which could take us back down to maybe all the way down to like 47 or 4,800 even. Or is this actually all a dead cat bounce where this is going to actually go even lower than this old low back here, right? We simply don't know. And, I have my suspicions, but they're just that. They're suspicions. The chart itself doesn't really give me any clue, okay? So I think it's the same story that it has been. If the stock market is in a new bull market, if it really has bottomed and this is all legit, then obviously I think Bitcoin has probably bottomed as well, and Bitcoin will probably continue to move up and eventually take out this old high, whether it's a year from now, 2 years from now, who knows. If the stock market bounce was all a manipulative bounce where the elite were simply trying to give their friends time to dump on unsuspecting retail, and it suddenly crashes and takes out the March low, then I think Bitcoin is going to be in a lot of trouble. I think it's going to take out this low and probably take out this low as well, right? And again, historically, if we're talking about macro pictures, that's what Bitcoin does. It goes down and retests the previous all-time high. Right now, the previous all-time high prior to 2017 was in 2013, and it was down around $1,150. So it would be completely, fathomable for it to go all the way back down to that level. And if it did, then I would probably look at loading up on a fair amount of spot Bitcoin, right? Obviously, it would depend on what else was going on at the time, but still in the realm of possibility. I'm certainly not counting it out. Obviously, right now this is on a log chart, but if we put it on a non-log chart, you can see that it's in a very clear downtrend. And realistically, to me, this still looks like a giant descending triangle, right? Now, obviously, the target would be 0, and I don't think it's going to 0, but I can still see this thing, breaking out of this triangle and going down to retest the 2013 highs. But again, macro stuff, macro picture, we really just have to wait and see what develops in that. On the smaller time frame, I think we just need to see which way this breaks. Is it going to go up and resume some type of uptrend, take out this old macro high back here, or was this distribution, and are we going to start moving back down? And if we do move back down, is it going to be a correction, or is it going to go further, right? And of course, we got our 200-week moving average down around $6,000 now, so that'll kind of be our first clue. Does the 200 moving average hold up like it's historically done, or does it just chop right through it? And if it chops right through it, then maybe we can look at talking more about those $1,000 to $3,000 levels, one step at a time, one level at a time. Okay, so that is what I'm seeing on the weekly. It's what I'm seeing on the 3-day. It's what I'm seeing on the daily. It's kind of what I'm seeing on the stock market. Let's take a quick look. I normally don't do this on the YouTube channel. I normally kind of keep this in the group, but let's take a quick look at the smaller time frames because I haven't looked at them today. I spent most of my day in a car dealership. My lease is up on my car, and I had extended it because I wanted to see what was going to happen with the COVID-19 stuff. But my brother got some stuff in that I was looking at. He owns the dealership, and he got some inventory in, so I've been looking at it over the last week. He's probably ready for me to buy something. I've been there about 5 times in the last 8 days, but trying to find the right vehicle. Let's see. Don't really see anything there. Does me no good at all. What is this? Okay, so here's a line we can watch, right? That's a line of resistance. Obviously, we've got a really nice peak here. We've got a second touch here, so we've got a trend line. So we can watch what happens if this price can move back up to this level here, right? Sounds good to me. If it goes above it, maybe we start moving up toward 98, 9900. If it can't break above it, maybe we start moving down, looking more toward that $8,500 level. Again, that's a 4-hour chart. We could also draw this back here like this, and we'd get something like this. I don't care for that line as much. If I was going to draw from way back here like this, what I would do is I would draw it from here to here, this little peak right here, because it also looked like it was a little bit of support here, and it looks like maybe it was a little resistance here. And if you draw it like that, guess what? It's very, very close to this line here, right? Somewhere in this ballpark right here, around 55, 60 RSI. So that's kind of what I'd be watching on the 4-hour chart. Let's take those lines off, and I'm going to zoom in even a little further. And on an hourly chart, didn't quite get high enough there, but we got a really nice line of support down here, right? Let's look at some volume. Volume's pretty rough. Volume is not good, guys. Look at this. Even down here, when it threw that tail down to 8,900, the hourly volume was under 2,000. You'll often see, 5-minute candles with more volume than that on these strong moves. So I don't love the volume, but really it's just between, what looks more like a triangle or a wedge type of pattern here. And I would say, just looking at this thing, let's look at price and forget RSI for a minute. Turn volume off. So it works just like the weekly, right? It works just like a daily chart. You've got up, down, a little bit of a mess here, but then you've got a strong move up, higher, 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 low. higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, lower high, lower low, right? So it looks like it's switching and then it throws in a higher high. So this is kind of ranging right now. And all you got to do is watch it. Does it take out this old high back here, which would be a sign that it's got some strong, possible strong move left? Or does it fail to take out this high, and does this end up being a double top, right? So what you don't want to do is say, well, I'm just going to guess. I think it might do this. This doesn't tell me which way it's going, right? It just gives me a couple of levels that I might want to watch for. Like if it breaks this level, that looks bullish, right? If it can't break this level and takes out this low here, that looks bearish, right? It's just the best way I can describe trading is, if you know anything about programming, in programming, there's this logic called an if statement. And the way an if statement works in programming, it's very simple. It, depending on the language, the syntax is a little bit different. But basically, it's if this condition happens, do this. That's all trading is. Just waiting for certain conditions to be met. And when those conditions get met, doing what you plan on. If it breaks this and closes above it and you want to go long, look for long positions. If it closes below this, and you want to go short, if that's your plan right now, if you're sitting at going, if it closes below this level, I want to go short, well then when it closes below it, stick to your plan and look for short positions, right? Doesn't mean you automatically go short or automatically go long. It means you look for validation, look for reasons to support your theory, right? After that happens. But right now, it's really just in a range until it breaks out one way or the other. Okay? Hopefully that makes sense. I know it's sometimes it's tough to explain these things in like 5 minutes or on a single YouTube video, but it really is that simple. It really does just come down to waiting, right? Trading is more about waiting than anything else. You'll often hear traders talk about over trading, and most people overtrade, right? Good friend of mine, a friend that I've known for over 20 years, right? Guy I grew up with, guy that used to live with me, never traded a day in his life, right? I hadn't seen him in years, and he stopped by yesterday because, he helped me out with my roof. Just, one of those friends that you can call and say, hey, can you come look at my roof, right? So he's like, yeah, I'll swing by. So he swung over, we caught up, looked at the roof, and then I started showing him some trading stuff, right? And it was like, I was telling him, like, this is so easy. Not easy. This is how simple this is. And I was showing him how to draw support and resistance and stuff. And he was like, dude, I think I need to get into that, right? Like, now whether he does or not, I don't know. He's got a really busy life. Right? He works full time. He's a welder. And then on the side, he does like construction type stuff, like drywall and stuff like that. So not a lot of time, but when I showed him how simple it was, he was definitely intrigued. And I think for most people, they think that, because the movies have made it look like you need an Ivy League education, or you need some kind of like intuition and all that kind of stuff. I think people think it's more complicated than it is. Guys, it's not complicated. Girls, guys, right? Whatever. Not complicated. Very, very simple. What screws people is their own emotion. What screws people is when they're trading with too much money and they get scared, and so they don't execute on their plan. So one of the guys in my paid group had actually mentioned the other day that he said, the funny thing is when I trade with small amounts of money, I do well. But when I try to trade with larger amounts, it seems like I lose. And his problem is not at all uncommon. That's very, very common. Because what happens is when you're trading with small amounts of money, you're trading almost entirely on logic, right? Because you're not worried about the money. But when you start trading with more money, a different part of your brain, I'm not talking about hypothetically, I mean literally, a different part of your brain starts to take over. And it's that emotional part of your brain, right? And it starts scaring you and telling you that, oh, what if you lose money? And suddenly you're making your decisions based off of fear instead of logic. And back when I played poker for a living years ago, long time ago, right? There was a saying, and every poker player will know this saying: scared money is dead money. Trading is the same way. If you find yourself constantly second guessing your trades and constantly second guessing your stop losses and constantly second guessing your entry points, you're probably playing with too much money, right? Or trading with too much money. You're not playing at all. It's not a game, right? But you're probably trading with too much money. And what you might consider is stepping down a little bit, using a little bit less money, building your confidence up, and then slowly building up. So like my friend yesterday was like, hey, maybe I should throw a grand or two at this. And I was like, you know what? I'd start with $10. And some people think, well, that's silly. It's not. Just start small and build your way up, right? It really is that simple. And make your trade plan before you're in the trade. Because when you look at this, like right now, you'll make this trade plan and say, just as an example, okay, I'm going to go short if this happens. I'll go long if this happens, right? Random lines. Don't buy into that. That doesn't mean anything. Just giving you a hypothetical, right? Well, if you're planning that right now and not actually doing the trade, it's probably your logic that's deciding on this course of action. And you might say, I'll go short here and then my stop loss will be here. I'll go long here and my stop loss will be here, right? That's all based on logic. As soon as you get into that trade, as soon as you have real money in the line, a different part of your brain is going to take over and it's going to want to start changing these levels all around. And that's what'll screw you. That right there is what's going to cost you money if you let it. You got to stick to the original plan because the original plan was based off of logic and not emotion. All right. So guys, the video is over 30 minutes there, depending on how I edit it. So I am going to go ahead and wrap up. But please remember that I am just some guy sitting in a spare bedroom. Nothing in the video is financial advice. Nothing in the video is trade advice. You should always do your own due diligence and seek out professional investment advice from a licensed financial advisor, which I am not, before making any type of investment in cryptocurrency or the stock market. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure and give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And again, make sure you check the description for a link where you can join the Patron for just $7 a month to get access to more frequent updates. This is James with Crypto Common Sense reminding you to please trade safe.